the CEO came to the hospital and accidentally found the girl he had a crush on in his school days, who was now a wife. Watching her bend down with difficulty to pick up something that had fallen on the ground, the CEO instinctively stepped forward to help, but the woman didn't seem to recognize him. She just thanked him politely and left in a hurry after speaking. The CEO stood there in a daze, an inexplicable sense of loss welling up in his heart. It turned out that many years ago, when the CEO was at his most down and out and helpless, it was the young woman who held an umbrella for him and told him that no matter how heavy the rain was, the sun would always break through the clouds. That sentence was like a beam of light, illuminating the CEO's darkness. From that moment on, he secretly made up his mind that he would come back to marry her when he made a name for himself. But fate is so cruel. When they met again many years later, she had become someone else's wife, and was even pregnant with someone else's child. Out of respect, the CEO thought he shouldn't disturb her life rashly. He could only accept this reality silently, and hide this love in his heart. But on the other side, the woman was walking in the hospital corridor, and accidentally bumped into a man. She was about to apologize, when the man slapped her without a word. The woman was so scared by the slap that she stepped back repeatedly. Unexpectedly, the man still refused to let go, and tried to take advantage of her. This scene was just seen by the CEO. He immediately stood up for her, without hesitation. He kicked the rascal to the ground with one foot. The rascal tried to get up and fight back, but when he looked up, he found that the person in front of him was actually his boss. The man was so scared that he quickly got up and apologized to the woman, to make up for his subordinate's mistake, and also to spend more time with the woman. He took the initiative to offer to accompany her to finish the prenatal checkup. The woman was still flustered, after what had just happened, afraid of being harassed again, so she nodded and agreed silently. The CEO originally wanted to guard her silently for the rest of his life, but after the checkup, he still couldn't help but ask, "Have you been happy all these years?" The woman was stunned for a moment, and then began to talk about her husband's promotion, her son's good grades, the big house and enough savings at home. She only talked about material things, and never mentioned whether she was happy or not. The CEO looked at her, and asked again, "Are you happy?" This sentence directly broke her disguise. She thought of her husband saying he was busy before she went out, and her son also said he wanted to play games. No one was willing to accompany her to the prenatal checkup. She had suffered so much all these years, and how many marriages among us end up like hers, daring not to ask about the true feelings in our hearts. She had long been stripped of all her radiance by life. The woman didn't dare to think about happiness carefully. She turned around and ran away, but when she reached the door of the ward, she heard a familiar voice. Her son, whom she had devoted all her efforts to, was disgusted that she was a slovenly yellow-faced woman, who had lost all his face, and even shouted to let the young and beautiful neighbor be his new mother. Hearing this, the woman's heart ached like being cut by a knife. It hurt so much that she couldn't breathe. She never expected that all her efforts over the years had turned out to be a joke. She couldn't help but rush into the ward and question her husband, saying he had no time to accompany her to the prenatal checkup in the morning. Why did he have time to accompany the neighbor to see a doctor? Unexpectedly, her husband spoke justifiably, and accused her of making a mountain out of a molehill. What made the woman even more desperate was that her son even chimed in beside her, and accused her of being jealous at such an old age. At that moment, she suddenly understood that in this family, she had long become an extra outsider. But because the child was here, the woman didn't say anything more. But she didn't know that her husband had long had an affair with the neighbor, just because the neighbor's brother was a senior executive in the CEO's company. Even instigated by the female neighbor, her husband had the idea of getting rid of the child in her womb. One day, the woman asked her son to go downstairs to buy a bottle of soy sauce, but the son, who only cared about playing games, was very impatient, and said, "You have nothing to do at home all day. Can't you go buy it yourself?" She just mentioned that she was pregnant and inconvenient. The son directly slammed the door. Helpless, she had to go downstairs by herself. When she came back, she found that it was raining heavily. She had no choice but to call her husband, wanting him to come and pick her up. But her husband said impatiently, "What's the big deal about this little rain?" and told her to come back and cook quickly. The woman had to carry her things and walk step by step into the rain. Unexpectedly, an umbrella appeared above her head at this time. It was the CEO, whom she had only met once. The CEO snatched the heavy things from her hand. His words were full of concern, and at this moment, the woman remembered that the CEO had paid her medical expenses in advance before, and offered to transfer the money to him. The CEO signaled that his mobile phone was in his pocket and told her to take it by herself. The woman hesitated for a moment, and still took out the CEO's mobile phone, only to find that the unlocked password was actually her birthday. She had no idea how important she was in the CEO's heart. After the CEO got her contact information in this way, he also regretted that she graduated from a famous school, but was trapped at home as as a housewife. Every word hit the hidden pain she had buried deep in her heart. The woman understood his veiled love. She said a flustered goodbye and fled home. She also took the custom-made umbrella with her by accident, but as soon as she got home the neighbor started speaking sarcastically, saying that this umbrella was a custom-made style worth 1 million yuan, and also insinuated sarcastically whether she had hooked up with a rich man. Her son rolled his eyes beside her, saying his mother was just a middle-aged woman. How could she have any charm? This umbrella was probably a fake. Her husband also looked indifferent, thinking that no one would take a fancy to her. A yellow-faced woman who only knew how to do housework. The woman also felt something was wrong in her heart, and finally decided to send the umbrella back to him by express delivery. But unexpectedly the CEO called and told her to go downstairs. The woman's heart skipped a beat. She quickly took the umbrella and rushed down, and questioned him why he had appeared repeatedly. The CEO said frankly that he had come for her. This made the woman very helpless. Then she made it clear that she was already married, and told the CEO not to come and disturb her again. After speaking she turned around and left. The CEO looked at her back filled with unwillingness, but in the end he still decided to let go and guard her silently. But he didn't know that the woman's husband had made up his mind to do something to her. As soon as the woman got home, her husband said he had a stomachache, and told her to go downstairs to buy medicine quickly. The woman didn't think much, and turned to go downstairs, but her husband grabbed her hand. A trace of struggle seemed to flash in his eyes, but in the end he only left a word, "Be careful," and let her go. When the woman passed a remote section of the road, a van suddenly rushed towards her. The woman was hit hard to the ground. At the moment when severe pain and the smell of blood filled the air, she saw her husband walking slowly with his arms around the female neighbor. She finally understood that all this was actually her husband's plot, but she was still pregnant with his child. Her husband even boasted that he now had money and power, and there were plenty of people who would have children for him. The woman suddenly lost control of her emotions. She thought of the time when she worked in a Fortune 500 company, while her husband was just a small employee. It was she who gave up her career for this family, but the neighbors sneered and said that was all in the past. Now she was just a yellow-faced woman with nothing, unlike herself, who was young and beautiful, and whose brother was a senior executive of the G Group, who could help her husband gain a firm foothold. At this time the son happened to pass by, and saw this scene. The woman shouted to her son to save her as if grasping at a straw, but unexpectedly her husband cruelly forced the son to choose only one between his parents. The female neighbor threatened and lured beside him, reminding him that his father was about to get a promotion, while his mother had nothing. Just like that the son chose his father. At that moment the woman's world completely collapsed. The female neighbor winked. The van started again, and aimed at the woman on the ground, while on the other side, the CEO finally couldn't convince himself to let go. The moonlight he had cherished for half his life. How could he let others trample it into the mud? In the end the CEO rushed back with overwhelming anger.